I'm in Monarto. This is one of Australia's ghost towns. According to government plans, this area should be home to 200,000 people. Instead, at the last census, that number was just 209. And instead of having hospitals and schools and industrial areas, this area is now home to rhinos and giraffes and lions. And here's how a failed planned city ended up becoming a great win for nature. Monarto is located around 60 kilometres from the South Australian capital of Adelaide. But to understand how this happened, we also need to take a trip back in time to the Adelaide of the 1960s and 70s.
From this spot you can see the suburbs that lie to the east and the south, the hills that surround the whole of the Adelaide Plain, and the business centre of the city itself. And big changes in Adelaide. A growing population, modern offices house thousands of workers, clerks, top executives, cleaners, professional men. The shops reflect a similar pattern. The main shopping street in Adelaide is Rundle Street. There are department stores here that are a delight for any woman.
Australia was changing a lot in the 1970s, and in 1972, Gough Whitlam became Prime Minister, the first Australian Labor Party PM in over 2 decades, and he was a man on a mission. He was supported in South Australia by Premier Don Dunstan, another socially progressive politician from the same party. One of the top policy topics at the time was the idea of decentralisation, having more smaller, livable cities. To achieve this, the Australian government created the Department of Urban Development, renamed the Department of Urban and Rural Development for acronym reasons, and their mission included plans to create new cities across the country, similar to how Canberra came to be. In SA, the goal was to prevent the growing Adelaide becoming a congested, smog-shrouded megalopolis. It was decided that Monarto would be established as a satellite city of Adelaide, and with limited viable options, it was decided that it would be located here, in farmlands around an hour or so drive from the city.
The new city, only a few miles to the west of the River Murray and the town of Murray Bridge, will provide homes for over 150,000 people in a relaxed rural atmosphere.
The Monarto Development Commission started in 1973 with the ambitious goal of creating the new city by 1980. And they moved fast, including acquiring all the required land from reluctant farmers.
The last farmers prepare to leave the properties they've called home for a century. Their livestock has been sold, their ploughs laid to rest, and their wood stoves put out for the last time. Sadly, they stand aside.
Well, I only hope it goes ahead. The way it looks, it will, because if it doesn't, that's when I'm going to be hurt. To be moved from my place for something that didn't happen, that's going to really hit.
And I'd like to see progress. I got no more to say. That's what I want. They took it from under my feet, and I want to see progress. Wouldn't you see that? Wouldn't you like it that way? Definitely you would. I want to see progress.
But sadly, their worst fears of being forced off the land for nothing would come to be. I wanted to understand what the goals of Monarto really were, so I headed to the State Library in Adelaide to see the original designs for myself. The documents created by the Development Commission were part plans and part marketing materials, and here's what the Premier had to say in 1973. It will probably be unlike any other city in Australia in its design, a new vision of the Australian city. It'll be the first city to understand the beauty and environmental advantage of Australian native flora. A city in which people will find that a much lower scale of water consumption or work is needed in their parks, streets, courtyards and play areas, because the trees, shrubs, plants and grasses belong to the land they grow in. The Monarto Central City would focus on the Monarto Hub, a building that had this huge tent-like roofs, a carnival-type centre for communal activities, and these helicopters for some reason. But the carnival town never came to be, and the project would soon start to unravel. So why didn't the project take off? One of the big factors is that Adelaide didn't have the population growth as projected. Therefore, it didn't need the extra space, and there wasn't a need for this extra city. Another factor was that the idea of putting the public service here, all the government employees, didn't work. People didn't want to make the move out to Monarto. But the biggest barriers of all were political. In 1975, Gough Whitlam was sacked by the Governor-General.
Well, may we say, God save the Queen. Because nothing will save the Governor-General.
And with the new government, the Department of Urban and Regional Development was abolished. And with that, so were the federal funds. With Dunstan retiring and a change of government in 1979, the funding was cancelled, and with that, the Monarto project was over. For humans at least. And the project cost around $30 million, and the bulk of that money went to acquiring the land and doing a series of feasibility studies into the design of the area. So as the project was disbanded, there were a lot of ideas thrown around about what could be done with the land. In the end, it was largely just sold back in small packages back to farmland, but one piece wasn't. In 1982, the Minister of Environment and Planning announced that 1,000 hectares of this mallee country would be allocated to the establishment of a purpose-built breeding area for wildlife. And a year later, this opened as a closed-to-the-public endangered species sanctuary. A couple of bison were among the first animals on the site. About a decade later, it was decided to open the area to visitors, including myself. And today, Monarto Safari Park is one of the world's largest open-range zoos, covering 1,500 hectares, the largest outside of Africa. And it plays a major role in numerous breeding programs for both native and exotic species, many of which are rare and endangered. And I've spent all of today exploring the park, and it's pretty amazing. It's been a hot day, but so great to see all of the animals up close. The meerkats are very cute, the giraffes are amazing, and it's just a really spectacular area. But of course, it'd be great to see more animals in their natural habitat. Outside of the park, there's not a lot else to the Monarto township. So while there are some species that are clearly benefiting, it's tough to look at the Monarto story and not see some high financial and human costs. So all in all, the Monarto planned city wasn't a success, but what's been left here in its wake is pretty special.
Monarto Zoo has welcomed a litter of 5 healthy cheetahs. Cheetahs are endangered in their native Africa. They were born 10 days ago to young mother Kesho.
Monarto Zoo is celebrating the arrival of a southern white rhino calf. The newborn is the result of an international breeding program trying to save the species from extinction.
Announced one of its endangered female chimpanzees, I should say, is pregnant.
This time, a baby giraffe. The not-so-little boy was born 10 days ago.
2 hyena cubs have had their first health checks at South Australia's Monarto Zoo.
Is the brush-tailed bettong, also known as the woylie.
It's a real boost for our natives team to see that there's an end point for a lot of the breeding programs that they do. They can actually have their animals out and in habitat.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please do subscribe. I'm Julian O'Shea. That's it from me.